flying through the air. This is not good.
Welcome back to the End-Cut Movie Review. Today we have Twisters, a surprisingly good film you definitely want to see.
The movie is a standalone sequel from the 1996 movie Twister with Bill Paxton, and both movies sort of have the same feel and tone about them. Now, in this movie, it's the same old adage. We have the meteorologist that has the sixth sense to be able to predict when the storms are coming. That's Daisy Edgar Jones' character, Kate. And then we have her rival / love interest, who is Glen Powell's character, Tyler Owens. And they are two opposing storm chasing teams, and then eventually we find throughout the movie they come together as one group to stop these storms. Now, the difference between the Twisters in 1996 and this film, in the 1996 one, they were looking for ways to scan and get more knowledge on Twisters, whereas in this film, they're trying to find a way to completely stop Twisters and use technology to evaporate the Twisters completely. And like Josh said in the intro, this movie will surprise you and is a great movie to go and see. Now her and four friends go storm chasing to stop a tornado with this new technology that she's come up with, and they get caught in what is it, F5?
Category 5. Yeah.
No, F5? They call it F5?
Brock Lesnar.
Here comes the pain!
F5 tornado, which is the biggest tornado they can be. And now one of the friends stays back in the car to essentially stay on the laptop to take in all the data from the tornado. Daisy and the three of our other friends go chasing the tornado. Three of them get sucked up. She survives. And then time jumps to in the future where she's just pretty much put that all behind her because she's traumatized from the fact of what happened to the storm chasing. And the visual of this storm in the opening scene, as soon as you sit down to watch this movie, just gets you pretty much amped up to watch the rest of this movie. I mean, any sort of crazy storm, geological storm movies like this is what it's about. It's the eye candy of watching things get destroyed because you like to sit back and think, that's never going to happen to me. How cool is this sort of to watch? And in this one, the CGI is obviously a lot better than the 1996 movie, but this opening scene, I mean, this tornado is enormous, and the way that they were able to make it look so menacing with how dark the screen is and how menacing and fearful and how big the tornado is when they look up and it takes up the whole of the sky, sets you on your way to watch this movie and just get excited. And it's a great opening. Just like in the first film, it's a great opening scene. And it's the way to open a movie.
As we always talk about at the very start, we always talk about the acting. So the memorable standouts for this, Glen Powell, he plays identically to Bill Paxton's character. This southern cowboy who's good looking. The man's got a great YouTube channel. Hopefully we can aspire to be him one day. And he's just out there wrangling tornadoes. He had a very funny character relief. On the other side, you have Daisy Edgar Jones' character, Kate, who's more serious. She's a bit more stoic. And I actually thought at the very start of the film that her acting, her facial expression wasn't there. But boy, was I wrong halfway through this film. She really jumped into the character. And I think that was just her adding bits of nuanced character slowly throughout this film. And she's amazing in this as well. Massive standout. And as the third main star in here, Anthony Ramos, he also played a bit of a character relief, and he was just mainly there for pushing storylines. He was mainly there just to add a bit more character development and kind of introducing this new love triangle between the three of them. But we all know it's clear that Glen Powell's going to get the woman. Look at him, for God's sake.
He's not the first guy to lose a girl to Glen Powell. I don't think he's going to be the last one because, I mean, it's not a fair fight.
No, it's not.
When you see the angles that they have got of this man's jawline in this film, you got a full 360 view of this man's jawline at each moment. No matter, his whole face was covered in this whole movie.
And not only just the jawline, he had tight-fitting shirts with the cowboy hat in absolute pouring rain. How can you not fall for the hunk? It's almost impossible.
With the water dripping off the tip of the cowboy hat. Oh,
fuck off.
Josh has got to go to bed. I'm going to finish this review just on my own.
Sorry guys.
But he had the water dripping off the tip of the cowboy hat. I mean, how could you not want to? And then 2 seconds later, guess who's at the car? Daisy Edgar Jones. Of course you are.
Don't blame her.
I was running into the front of the screen too, Daisy. Don't you worry about that. The acting in the original movie wasn't. I mean, it's corny. Same with this movie as well. Both movies, super corny, but it sort of works. I mean, in a weird sort of American Hollywood way where you can turn storm chasers into rock stars. I mean, it's so typically American, especially when you see like they're all from the South and stuff. It's just so typical. But I think going from the first one to the second one, the characters, the sort of extra characters or the background characters were a little bit more memorable in the first one than this second one. Like you had your Philip Seymour Hoffmans and you had your Alan Rucks, who were just sort of like these memorable characters, especially when you consider like the sort of movies that those two guys have been in. When you're looking at those extras in the first film, a lot more memorable, especially when we watched the original Twister the day after we watched the new one that came out, and they sort of stick in your mind a bit longer than the cannon fodder sort of background characters in this new Twister in 2024, because I mean they were just sort of there. They didn't really add any sort of thing themselves, whereas in the original one they sort of all had their own personality in a way. So that's sort of just one little knock and little nitpick that we had from the original one to this one.
They own the screen in this, but like as Judy was saying, back in the day, there seems to me that they used to have multiple people on screen that actually had a great storyline. It was multiple love interests, or there was like action building somewhere else. But in this, it's just focused on the main three. But that does not take away, once again, how good that they are on there and how well the story is told. Especially with the devastation. Like if you look at this, the category 5 that these tornadoes are, and they show the CGI, by the way, is amazing in this. And then it leaves the massive after destruction of what happens, and it makes you actually feel in this film sorry for everyone. We want them to succeed. We want them to finally be able to destroy these tornadoes because they just cause devastation to people, and it shows multiple shots of that, multicam of like the normal civilians on screen picking up the debris, them making multiple decisions of should we go chase this tornado or should we go help the town next to us, because if we don't they might die or they might get stuck or something like that. So they did a very good job of storytelling in this film, which I thought was a lot better than the first one.
Yeah, the sets that show the destruction deserve all the props in the world, because that looked exactly like, I mean, it looked like I was watching the real footage of like Hurricane Katrina or something like that, or the Bali, the floods in Bali. Like it looked exactly how I thought devastation would be. And if you watch a previous review of ours on A Quiet Place Day One, we noted in that movie that we felt that their street of devastation looked just like a set, whereas in this movie, and in the original movie as well, which they did great, was that they showed that the streets actually looked like it was a devastation, like it was just debris and rubble everywhere. So that's props to them for that. One of the things that we spoke about that we loved in the original one was how well the special effects looked in the storm. Now, the CGI in the original one, dreadful. The Twister looked horrible, but that's 90s, of course. But the special effects looked incredible. It looked like Bill Paxton was really in a storm. You know, he had things flying along the screen, he had hail hitting him, all that sort of stuff, things smashing into the car. That looked great. This one loses that touch a little bit. There's not as much special... Well, I don't think there's any special effects, really. If there was, it's very minor. But obviously the CGI looks great. And that's just the difference, I think, between the 90s and now 2020, where we've got the technology to be able to do that.
If you're an American, you're going to love this film because Glen Powell's just pumping the old great American tunes, and it makes you want to go fight these tornadoes with him. There's his old trusty truck, the old TRX Ram, that looks phenomenal, by the way. I think they rebuilt this truck to look identical to the first, but also attack a proper tornado to make it look so realistic. So their attention to detail in here and to immerse you a little bit more into this film was through that truck, that almost product placement that we're so used to seeing in so many movies these days.
I mean, this movie is one big Dodge Ram advertisement, let's be honest.
That and Jeep Trackhawks.
And guess what? I went and bought one straight after it. So
we've had 3 on order.
It worked.
3 on order. We've got
been brainwashed.
I literally have a fucking Ram sitting out here at the moment.
I literally got brainwashed by this movie.
Literally. And if it wasn't sponsored, their budget would be at least $1 million just on these trucks, because there was like 5 of them. Like, it was impressive. But the music, the cinematography, and the attention to detail with the cars and the product placement was amazing to see. And trust me, you will want to go buy them after this. Yeah. As always, we talk about the logic in these films. Now, I understand it's a Twister movie. I understand it's a massive action-packed adventure. But these things are just, you have to mention them because they're so funny. One of the things is at the very start of the film, before she loses her 3 friends, one of them is her boyfriend. And this man somehow gets the strength of Zeus to lift this trailer up and just throws it back like it didn't even fall over. What the fuck were you thinking?
I need that man's workout ratio. It's Captain America holding the fucking
helicopter.
That's literally pulled the Captain America. He looked at the bicep too. He flexed it. Flips a whole trailer. That thing would have weighed 600-700 kilos
minimum.
Whole trailer flipped over.
He got Odin's staff, chucked it under the trailer, and lifted that thing up
the whole thing.
Like it didn't weigh, like it was a feather. Like this thing was a feather. It was so fucking incredible to see that. But
and then the man gets whipped away by the freaking gets whisked away by the tornado, and he's gone forever.
And somehow he can't hold on to a bar, and then just gets thrown into this category 5 tornado.
Daisy Edgar Jones is on. So Daisy Edgar Jones is huddled, and he's over the top of her, sort of protecting her from the wind in a way. He gets sucked into the tornado, and she doesn't. What's the difference between the 3 centimeters between where he is and where she is? I mean, come on.
It makes no sense.
But the movie's still great. Yeah. Trust me, it's a great movie. We're just like nitpicking funny things that we found that were just sort of ridiculous. The only main sort of criticism I would have for the movie was I wish that they had used a little bit more of storm sounds when the tornadoes were actually going by. Like in the cinema, it was loud, but it wasn't really that like noise that you feel, that fearful noise of when it's like high wind, like seriously scary weather outside. Like, you know, when there's like horrible, strong, stormy weather on, you can feel it, you can hear it. Whereas in this movie, they didn't really use it that well. They just sort of used like the soundtrack of the movie to build the anticipation and like, you know, like the soundtrack to build up the hype. Whereas they could have just used like sounds of storm and wind blowing at 100 miles per hour, because that's scary, and that would have actually really worked.
If you look at the first one, you can literally hear the vacuous sound of that tornado. You actually, I remember watching the first one after, like we said, after watching this one, and I was like, wrote that down. I had to write that down. It was so terrifying when you hear that coming like a vacuum. It's just the scariest shit in the world.
Whereas in this one, they sort of use like the, you know, like the dun 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 dun, the soundtrack to build up the Cantina Man, the Cantina song soundtrack to build up the hype and anticipation. But I think if they had have used and more honed the ability to just use seriously loud winds, like soaring 100-kilometer winds per hour, and like that sort of that fear that comes from that, I think it really would have gone a lot further into making these tornadoes a lot more fearful than they were. Because like visually, yes, it was fearful, because I mean, look in the movie, the tornado is the size of a planet. With the sound as well behind that, I think it would have just added a lot more to the spectacle. I wish they had done that. But I mean, aside, like, the movie was great.
Yeah,
it was a great movie, and it was like, I think if you read a lot of the like if you see reviews and stuff, people are surprised about how good it was, because usually sequels in this day and age aren't supposed to be good, especially 20 years later. But this is literally a popcorn movie. It's perfect.
So as always, I then can't we end these reviews with a rating. I'm probably going to rate this as 75%. It was a great film. The only thing I want to add to everything that we've said before, I don't want to repeat myself, but the one thing I noticed between the opening scene of the first film and this one, if you're a movie head like us, we noticed a lot of the way that the scenes are set up. So the first one, I noticed they didn't really show you the tornado. In this one, they showed you everything. And then they should have made the sound crazy, horrific, and then this one they kind of just showed you the mass of it, which allowed you to fall into that like illusion of, oh, it's fearful. So they're the two differences. But other than that, I love this film. I would recommend it to you. As Jordy said, great popcorn film. Watch this, go see it. It's great.
Yeah, my rating for this film would be around about like 70, 80, 90%. Like, there's nothing really like wrong with this movie, and I think the main thing that I can sort of critique this movie in a way that I know and then I can show other people is that watching this movie, I had fun. I literally was enjoying this movie the whole time it was on. It's so cheesy, it's so corny, but it works. Like, the same as the original one, and I love that about a movie, especially a movie that like sort of doesn't really take itself too seriously in a way, but also has enough love and respect behind it to be a good movie, so that it actually feels like they put effort and everything into it. So this is a great movie. It's definitely worth going to see.
Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to keep up with our weekly content. Also, like the video because, you know, it pushes it further a little bit.
Question of the day. Have you ever been in a tornado or seen one? We are in Australia. We don't get those, thankfully, because if we did, I wouldn't want to be here. But what are they like if you've experienced one or seen one? I would like to know. Is it like what it is in, obviously not as the size that it is in this movie, but are they similar towards that? Like, let us know in the comments. I'd love to know.
Anyway, guys, peace, we out.
Peace.
And cut.